You are listening to Keep Canada Weird, a weekly weird news roundup by the Nighttime Podcast.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the weekly Keep Canada Weird discussion series. If you're new here, I'm Jordan Bonaparte, and in Keep Canada Weird, my pal Aaron Airport and I seek out and explore the more offbeat news stories that played out across Canada over the last week. In tonight's episode, which we recorded on the 16th of June, 2024, Aaron and I investigate chemtrails with the Premier of Saskatchewan. We get attacked by a dog in Sudbury, we get attacked by a bunch of birds in Toronto, and we get arrested after being scammed by a shady paving company in Mississauga. So let's not waste any time here, let's get into it. Handsome Aaron Airport. We're here, we made it. We're alive.
Jordan Bus Stop Bonaparte. We're here. We made it.
Jovial Jordan. I thought we settled on this.
No, you settled on that. The rest of the Keep Canada Weird Army has settled on Jordan Bus Stop Bonaparte.
Damn it. That is the lamest name. But let's move on. I got a tea here. Do you got one of those weird pops?
I ran out of my sugar-free, caffeine-free Coca-Cola. So now, tonight, I'm drinking sugar-free, caffeine-free tap water.
Oh, very refreshing. And you're going to need a lot of tap water because things are about to heat up around here. In Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, Quebec, Ontario, but I think all around Canada, we're recording this episode the day before a dreaded heat wave is supposed to land. Mm-hmm. Do you have air conditioning at your new place?
Yeah, I've got a heat pump, so I get some air conditioning in one of the rooms that I could use.
It's about to get pretty wild here. They're calling for temperatures in the high 30s, low 40s when you consider the humidex, which is super important because that's one thing. Like I talk to a lot of listeners from across the world who think Canada is cold. But if you look at our temperature, it's misleading because when you take that temperature and then mix with it the fact that we're often on the water and it's so humid and disgusting, it's a completely different heat than what you would have in, the southern US, like Arizona or something. So the humidex takes into account the humidity in the air and what the temperature feels like. So although it may only be like 33 degrees on a thermometer, with the humidex and the humidity considered, we're expecting this heat wave to be in the low 40s as far as how it feels. And I'm worried about it because I do not like the heat.
Well, yeah, I used to really not like the heat, but I've grown to enjoy it. Summer used to be one of my least favorite seasons, but the older I get, the more into it, because I start to hate winter now in my older age so much that I'll take any heat over the amount of snow that we got this winter.
Yeah, I get that. But when it's cold, you can just bundle right up. But I found with the heat, it's like inescapable. But luckily, I have air conditioning at my house, so I just go inside and I can survive. But I really feel for anyone who doesn't have air conditioning over the next several days, there's probably going to be a lot of people listening to this episode utterly miserable at how hot and cruel the sun is. And I feel for them.
Yeah, well, just like any friend or family member, the sun can treat you well and the sun can turn their back on you.
That's true. Well, we got to get into it here. We're not here to complain about the weather, although maybe we are in some cases.
Well, you've been complaining about the weather the entire episode so far.
That's true. I'm worried about it, but we are here not for that reason. We are here to keep Canada weird. We got a lot of stories to get into. We're going to be talking birds. We're going to be talking dogs. We're going to be talking chemtrails. And of course, we're going to be talking about a roofing scam that leads to a bit of a war. And we'll be talking about nudists. We got it all. But before we get into any of it, let's catch up with a listener via voice memo. If you recall last week, we heard from Ruth in England who shared a rather unbelievable story that involved a Canada goose in England with a broken neck from a boat race being rescued by a very conveniently placed swan sanctuary. Ruth sent us a voicemail giving her reaction to our coverage of her story. Here's what Ruth had to say.
Hello, handsome Aaron Airport and Jordan. It's Ruth from England. Thank you so much. You made my day for sharing my Canada Goose story. It just made me laugh because Aaron I felt like you didn't believe me about the Swan Sanctuary, and it is kind of weird, but I am going to send you a map that shows you that literally, I didn't know it was there, but literally not even a 5-minute drive. So yeah, it's really close. It is weird, I know. And we were drinking white wine, not tea. Thank you for keeping Canada weird. I love your program so much, even though I live in England, which is kind of weird, but keep doing what you're doing.
So there you have it. It was not tea. You, what would that be called? Not prejudiced.
I stereotyped her.
It was wine. And she did, in fact, do
Yeah.
what she said. She sent us a map of, and she circled, I don't know if you can see this, but she drew an X on where the race was held. And she drew a circle around the Swan Sanctuary. And she's not lying. There is a Swan Sanctuary exactly where this allegedly happened. She pointed a finger at you for doubting her. I don't think she heard any doubt in my voice. And that's accurate because I believed her.
I'm not here to add validity to Ruth's story. It's not my job to prove anything true or false. But when I imagined the story last week after listening to Ruth's voicemail, I imagined her in this relaxing setting drinking tea, right? As it's England and I'm a jerk. But now she's taken away some credibility. She's now admitting to be completely inebriated during the experience. She was drinking what I can only imagine to be a copious amount of white wine. She was possibly blackout drunk. I don't know. The Swan may have not even existed at all. And then she may be saying, yeah, but the Swan Sanctuary is actually just down the street from me, sure. But did this whole Swan thing actually happen now that we know that Ruth is a raging alcoholic?
The goose thing actually happened.
Yeah, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's a bird.
Maybe there was no race. It was.
I've already forgotten the key details.
It was a Canada
of the story,
goose.
Obviously.
We're not talking about swans in England.
It was a Canada goose. Whatever. They're a bird with feathers. They flock together. They're all one family to me. Because I'm not allowed to Google anything on this show anymore. So,
well, I'll save you from Googling weird Canadian news stories because I got a bunch of them here. And Ruth's voicemail leads directly into our first one because we're staying on the topic we both enjoy talking about, and that is birds. We're going to be going to Toronto. A listener named Heather got me hip to the story of a certain breed. I guess breed's the right word. A certain breed of birds that seem to be causing some serious trouble. People in Toronto are raising the alarm on a troubling and disturbing trend related to small blackbirds with like a little red spot on their wing that are attacking people all over the city. Here's some news coverage of the story. We'll listen to that and then we'll get into it.
Caught on camera. Pedestrians in the city facing an unexpected aerial assault from red-winged blackbirds. This video taken near the waterfront, but similar behavior has also been reported in Humber Bay Shores Park, Liberty Village, the beaches, and here near Courttown Common Park. But turning our sidewalks into a series of avian obstacle courses is hardly a bird-brained scheme.
They're in the breeding season.
Gail Fraser is a professor with York U. She knows a little something about birds and says their behavior is both deliberate and important.
So males defend territories, and at this point, there's either a nest or there's even young fledglings around. So they're protecting their young of the year.
In the video, it looks like they dive in, they kind of do some flapping, and then they kind of fly away. Are they likely to just kind of give you a little scare, or are they likely to peck or be more aggressive?
Yeah, no, they're going to be just like, get out of here, but without risking their own life. So they don't want somebody grabbing them.
Red-winged blackbird's a really widespread species found across the US and Canada.
Meanwhile, the president of the Ontario Field Ornithologists says by and large in Canada, this sort of dive bombing behavior is mostly unique to this particular kind of bird.
I think it's fair to say our most aggressive bird in our local area around nest sites. If you go to other parts of the world, there are other aggressive birds. Australia has quite a few.
If you're near a bird nest, birds will respond to protect them to a certain degree.
So I didn't introduce that story with any reference to the animal uprising because I don't know if it's related. We hear experts there describing this phenomenon as being related to that certain breed being something between territorial and protective of its young. But needless to say, I think if people across Toronto are being dive bombed by small blackbirds, we need to talk about it.
Well, to relate it to the animal uprising, which I think I can, even though I don't think these circumstances in particular are direct or specific plans in relation to the animal uprising, I do think in the long term, what these birds are learning when they are attacking us in this manner is that we're very afraid of any animal that lunges at us.
Yeah, certainly.
Even if if you and that bird were stuck in a room together, the human's going to win that match in an enclosed space, where flight isn't going to really be as much of a factor. But so when it comes to a face-to-face confrontation between a human and one of these birds, the human will most likely win. However, what the birds are noticing and what they're probably communicating to the other animals is that we are so afraid of any animal that shows any amount of aggression towards us that we just run away in fear. That's our instinct to do. It's our initial gut reaction. So I think although these bird swoopings are not, again, a direct plan in the animal uprising, I think the information that they're receiving and that they're collecting from it is going to affect us long term in the animal uprising.
Intelligent insight on that, Aaron. So thank you for sharing that. It's kind of like at the beginning, at the very early stages of a boxing match, when one of the boxers just throwing like a really light left jab just to see how the other fighter will react to it. This could be something like that, just kind of sizing us up and seeing how we react. And I guess how we react is very poorly.
Yeah, the other boxer runs into the corner screaming. He lightly tapped me.
Well, we don't need to spend much more time on the topic of birds because we got to get into dogs. But before we move away from birds, I want one other voicemail to be heard. This is a listener named Khalifa, who he's a real estate agent who had a little bit of a pigeon problem. I'm not sure if we can help or give any advice with this, but let's hear him out.
Hi guys, I love your podcast. You guys keep making me laugh. I love it. All this discussion about birds, I like to tell a little story. I invest in properties in West Coast and East Coast, and this was a property I came across in Saskatoon, and it was kind of condemned because it was a condo, and nobody wanted to purchase this property because the entire balcony was inhabited by pigeons. There was like little pigeons, they were there. Like nobody was living in this condo for like, I don't know, a year or so. It was repossessed. It was a condo in the main city, and there was bird poop everywhere and pigeons everywhere on the balcony. So I found it so weird because I'm like, even if I buy this, who do you call to remove hundreds of pigeons?
That's the whole voicemail.
Who is just a desperate plea to has to be a last effort of I've called everybody to try and see who will get rid of these pigeons for me. And I heard you guys talking about birds a lot on your Keep Canada Weird podcast. So maybe you could help.
Yeah, I don't know who you would call.
I wonder if you could put up a scarecrow.
Would a pigeon fall for that?
I don't know.
Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. At that point, if you're looking for advice from a random Canadian podcast, I think it's worth trying a scarecrow. Works for crows.
Good point. All right. Well, we've outdone ourselves with the bird discussion. We've gone from being complete complete ignoramuses on the topic of birds to being absolute experts to the point that real estate investors are contacting us for professional advice. And there you go. Put up a scarecrow and buy this income property.
Buy it, then put the scarecrow up. It's important to invest financially first before you have the solutions to the problems.
Yeah. Well, let's move on from birds, as I promised, to a different animal species, dogs. We got a little bit to talk about here with dogs. And I'm going to introduce it with a voicemail, but not the type we usually get. There's a lot to say about this voicemail, but it is somewhere between hate and critical voicemail. But it's also a great segue into our next story. Before I play the voicemail, do you remember several weeks ago, we covered a story that involved someone, her name was Miss Rockwell. She witnessed a dog attacking some kids. She tried to intervene. The dog bit her, and she ended her news clip by basically saying, like, down. It's the end of it for that dog. Night, night. And we kind of made fun of her, like, the taste of blood in her voice.
Mm-hmm. I remember clearly.
A listener named Silas did not like the way we handled that story. And here's why.
Hey, this is Silas from Wisconsin. This is probably not a fun first voicemail, but I love your show. I think it's great. I was rather irate near the end of the May 14th episode. I think the way you handled Miss Barkwell, I don't remember her first name, I'll be totally honest. I have been bitten by dogs before. I love dogs, love animals. I just don't think it's safe. I think that the amount of people they attacked is pretty crazy. I have no sympathy for it. Great show. Love you guys. You can air this one if you want. I don't really care. I don't know. Just kind of pissed me off. I'm not going to lie. As an addition to it, I think the odd way Miss Barkwell may have phrased it is probably an effort to avoid sounding outright bloodthirsty on the news that might potentially play to children, like the dog bit. All right. Have a nice day.
So some of the things he's saying sounds like he's really upset, but I don't know what we did wrong, because I don't remember us being, like, I think we were on her side. I enjoyed her, and I think I said I would like to track her down and talk to her, because I thought she was great.
I think I might have, and it's usually me that initiates somebody's anger or rage on this show, I think. But
well, he said he was irate.
He was irate, yeah. I think I might have danced around the issue a bit, in the sense that I probably said something to the effect of, I don't like to see the dogs put down, because from what I heard, hearing that voice memo for the first time, it sounds like he was pro putting the dog down because the dog had bit people and that thing. Am I correct in that?
I don't know if he was pro putting the dog down, but I think he's been bitten by a dog, as he said there. And I think my impression of the voicemail is that to him, dog safety and all that is a big issue that we shouldn't take lightly. And I agree with him. I think we both agreed that it was a reckless dog owner, someone who didn't have control of their dog. And I think we just found the humor in Miss Barkwell.
Yeah, I think we found humor in her. So maybe that was where the issue lied, because we were having a good time kind of poking fun at her. And
you just don't often get someone saying, like, they want night, night. And the way she said it was a bit of an action movie.
Yeah, she was a colorful character, so we had a good time talking about her. Because, I mean, my policy has always been, whenever we talk about stories like this, I don't think there's bad dogs. I think there's bad dog owners and people who, have a hard time controlling their dogs and shouldn't be dog owners. And that's what a lot of times leads to a dog biting somebody.
Yeah. And to show Silas how serious we are, there's a story that I want to highlight tonight. Let me introduce it this way. Two dog owners from Sudbury have gone public with their concern after both claimed their dog was brutally mauled by the same, still unidentified pit bull, and they believe city bylaw enforcement is not taking it seriously. Here's the story.
Donna Marie Cote says she is still traumatized by the attack on her 8-month-old Shih Tzu, Max. It happened May 16th in the back laneway of her home. Her dog was on leash at the time.
I saw a girl coming down the street with a pit bull on a leash that just looked like a rope, and I could see that she obviously couldn't control the dog.
This is video of what Cote says happened next, which was captured on home video surveillance in the lane at Bessie and Jean.
The corner of my eye, I see the dog coming charging at me. So I pulled my dog up into my arm, and the dog came, the pit bull grabbed my arm, and my dog fell. And then he picked up my dog by the neck, and he shook my dog, so the dog went unconscious.
She suffered injuries to her arm after trying to protect Max. She says police responded, but not bylaw or animal control that evening. She says the dog responsible has not been located, even though it was followed after the attack to a nearby building. Another dog, Brandy, a 13-year-old Shar-Pei Beagle mix that was adopted after appearing on CTV's Take Me Home Tuesday, was attacked on May 24th in the same neighborhood. Her owner says Brandy was on leash at the time.
Basically saw it coming from across the street. When I did first see it, I knew that it was a big dog and it was a powerful dog and these people couldn't control it.
Carpenter says the dog mauled Brandy and knocked her over. She was able to wave down a Greater Sudbury police officer who was in the area. Neither bylaw nor animal control responded the afternoon of the attack.
How I felt was scared, vulnerable, and, very, very mad. Very, very mad that this was happening to my old, sweet dog.
The women connected after the groomer of both dogs heard about the attacks and put them in touch. In an email, the city confirms the attacks are being actively investigated by bylaw, police, and animal control. In the meantime, both dog owners say they're terrified and worried about more dog attacks.
I'm worried that a human could be hurt too, another person, trying to save their dog, because that's what you're going to do.
I'm angry that we don't have proper animal control. People don't even know how much in danger they are from dogs like this.
Cote says she wants to turn her trauma and anger into action. She's thinking about starting a petition for better animal control in the city.
Some parts of that were hard to watch when we kind of heard the story of two different dogs who were both attacked by the same pit bull that seemed to be wearing a rope for a leash. But in the first attack, we actually have a video for it. And it's this woman walking with this tiny little dog, a pit bull, I don't know if it's a pit bull, but a big dog comes out of nowhere. She lifts up her little dog up against her chest, and the big dog jumps up on her and tears the dog out of her arms, and it's just wagging it around like a rag doll. That is horrifying. And I think, if no matter what type of animal you have such a responsibility to take care of that thing and make sure it doesn't hurt itself or others or you. And I think if your dog attacks someone, the last thing you should do is take off out of there and hide your dog so bylaw people can't show up and get it. And it seems like the dog has done it twice. I think this is awful.
Yeah, and I'm sure the owner knows what's going to happen if that dog gets caught. So, yeah, God knows where they're hiding out now. But that's a really hard video to watch, and it's a tough story to talk about because, I mean, I hate seeing animals get hurt, and when you see a really big vicious dog just swinging a small dog around with its only intentions is to kill it. When you
just tear it apart,
yeah,
and not to eat, because if a dog did that, it doesn't want to eat the smaller dog. It seems like he just wanted to kill this.
He just wants to
dog.
kill it and walk away. I don't. I don't know enough about the subject to really understand why.
That's never stopped you before.
You're right.
Don't guess. In this case, do not guess.
But this person must know that their dog, before these two attacks, the person must already know that their dog can't be around other dogs on the street.
Yeah. And
So
this is two attacks that we know about. I'm sure
I'm
there's
sure there's others. Yeah.
many other
I'm sure there were
instances.
some before this. I'm sure this owner knows about the situation with their own dog and how it reacts to when it sees other dogs. So to be kind of taking it out on the street in some kind of a makeshift rope leash,
Mm,
it's again, this is another case, I think, of just a terrible dog owner
yeah.
um,
But
adding
you
fuel to the
know,
fire.
you love your cat, Ken Tiggs, like it's a child, right?
Like he's a grown adult who I love.
Yeah, he's like your
He's an
roommate, I
older
guess.
cat.
Yeah.
He's a big man.
But imagine this. So let's forget about your cat. But
I never forget about my cat.
if your child killed somebody or tried to kill somebody and came home and you knew about it, like could you turn your kid in, or would you
Well, you
like?
can because your kid's not going to die. Your kid's going
Yeah,
to
what if
go
you're in a
through
company with
the.
capital punishment?
But how old is the kid? Because they're not going to put a child on death
I guess it's
row.
different.
Like if your child is a grown adult, then your child will go through the justice system as anybody else would. And then it depends, did my grown adult child kill somebody in the right side of, justice? Like did were they
Like your kid's
defending
like Dexter.
themselves? Yeah, like Dexter, like his
Your
own.
kid is only your kid is only killing killers who got away on technicalities.
Yeah, yeah. I if I ever have children, I hope that they do have a taste for blood, but they only taste evil blood.
Okay. This has all gotten way too dark. Let's lighten it up, and there's only one way to lighten things up around here,
And
and that
that's
is
to keep talking about Dexter.
to talk about stories set in Saskatchewan,
Oh,
the most ridiculous, nonsensical province in Canada. Last week we heard about the great controversy coming out of Saskatchewan that rocked the whole country and beyond, and that was the story of ex Saturday Night Live cast member Rob Schneider taking a comedy set in the wrong direction at a fundraiser for a hospital in Regina and getting his set cut short. A listener named Erica wants to weigh in on the Rob Schneider situation. And then we're going to hear about Saskatchewan's latest controversy. I don't know how to. I think you can say it both ways.
I
Let's hear
love
from
how
Erica
to do
first.
it again.
Controversy.
Controversy. I love that. Jordan bus stop Bonaparte tangled in Saskatchewan controversy.
Here's what Erica had to say about the Rob Schneider controversy.
Hey, Jordan and Aaron. This is Erica from the Vancouver Island Outpost, and I'm listening to the Rob Schneider story, and I think that there are two hilarious things that come to mind for me about this. The first is that Canada's great controversy is happening in a city that rhymes with vagina. I find that very delightful. And secondly, I too was a reluctant inhabitant of Alberta for a time, and much like Madeline, I share a specific and vitriolic disdain for the province of Alberta and all its citizens. Sorry, it's true. And while I lived there, there was a community theater in the small city that I lived in who had a big fundraiser gala every year, much in the same vein as this Regina Hospital Foundation situation, and much in the same vein as this Regina situation. This board of directors managed to hire Norm Macdonald one year as the entertainer. And I am not by any means a Norm Macdonald fan, but I know enough about the guy to know that a room full of geriatric farmers in a very conservative part of Alberta, he was not an appropriate fit for. And as you can imagine, it didn't go over well. I'm not sure if his set was cut short, but I do know that the namesake individual for the theater. The theater was named after a guy who at the time was alive, was quite old, for his volunteer contributions to the community. He got up and left because he was so offended with Norm Macdonald's set. So, yeah, I just find that very delightful. Take it easy.
First of all, I'm offended. Erica says, like, I'm not by any means a Norm Macdonald fan.
I was offended by that too. Yeah.
I just want to be clear. Norm Macdonald is a national treasure that should be celebrated by every Canadian. He, in my opinion, is the funniest Canadian of all time.
Oh, he's hilarious. I love Norm Macdonald. I do see her point that that is not an audience that you should put Norm Macdonald in front of.
No, he is like the driest, most sarcastic, and with these long build-ups to like a weird punchline. To have him hired for anything outside of like people who enjoy comedy, they're not going to get it.
No. But
at least,
rest in peace, Norm Macdonald. Keep Canada Weird. Loves you.
Yeah, that was something else. But let's move on from reminiscing about last week's controversy in Regina, Saskatchewan, and move on to the latest situation playing out there. So again, last week's biggest story out of Saskatchewan was Rob Schneider's failed performance at a hospital fundraiser, but it seems like the Premier of Saskatchewan, Scott Moe, wanted to outdo him and claim the trophy for the weirdest Saskatchewan news story this week, and he knocked it out of the park. 6 weeks ago, Premier Moe held a town hall type meeting in a place called Spears, Saskatchewan. So that happened 6 weeks ago, but just last week, some video from the town hall went viral because it seemed to show the premier suggesting that he is going to order people to research, of all things, chemtrails. Before we get into the story, though, you know what a chemtrail is, right? Like, is this something we need to explain?
It's a conspiracy theory where there are people who believe the government is using airplanes to spread all different types of various chemicals to control people's minds and infect them with different diseases and any other kooky thing that you can imagine.
Yeah, it's like you can take, like, chemtrails are right up there with like the flat earth theory or, alien visitation from UFOs. They're kind of all in the same neighborhood. To hear a premier suggest he's going to be researching them is going to be a bit of a shock to some people. But let's hear how it all goes down and hear some reactions to his statements. Here it comes.
Premier Scott Moe spent 2 hours speaking and answering questions at this meeting in Spears. Moe covered familiar ground like his opposition to the federal carbon tax and his government's parental rights bill. He was also asked a wide variety of questions, like this one about chemtrails.
What are you going to do about the barium, aluminum, strontium, lithium, atrazine, raw kerosene, raw gasoline, and raw diesel that's being dumped on your province by God knows who?
I believe he's talking about the chemtrails.
It's a fact. Do you have anybody doing soil tests and water tests for all of these chemical poisons being dumped on our heads?
There's a lot of soil tests going on. I don't know if they're looking for all of that or not. I'm starting to hear about this through emails into our office the last number of months, and I'll have to do some more work looking into it. I don't know if there's as coordinated an approach as some folks think, but there obviously are emissions that are coming out of the jets that are flying over, and the prospect is, or the projection is, there's going to be a lot more jets flying in the not too distant future than there is today.
A University of Chicago physicist who's debunked chemtrail conspiracies over the years says that aircraft do release pollution, but he says there is no evidence of a secret government program to put toxic chemicals into planes and spread them over the population.
To be clear, I listened to the clip that Scott Moe said, and he didn't agree there was a conspiracy, but he said he'd heard things for months and they were looking into it. And I think it's possible to do better than that. It's possible to find polite ways to say that it's just really inconceivable that there is such a large-scale program.
The meeting has NDP leader Carla Beck questioning Moe. She says he should have rejected conspiracies.
As soon as they hear one angry respondent or a town hall participant, talk about chemtrails or conspiracy theorists involving your healthcare workers, you fold like a cheap tent. That's not leadership.
Another attendee questioned the Saskatchewan Health Authority's role in the pandemic. The questioner said the SHA was, quote, instituting the COVID pandemic with a delivery system for biological weapons. Mo said he would read the man's document.
It shouldn't have been difficult for the Premier to simply say, you know what, that's not the case. Saskatchewan healthcare workers, the SHA, were not involved in poisoning the population or delivering biological weapons during the pandemic. But you didn't hear him say that, which is a problem. You should say the same thing in every room, even when it's hard.
Oh man, there's a lot to say there. My first point is like, that sounds like an amazing town hall meeting.
Yeah, I don't even know if it was an official town hall meeting. It seemed like it's just this room that some citizens rent out and invite whoever to come and speak at.
Yeah, seriously. Well, I think you're exactly right. My understanding is his belief was that it was put on by like the mayor or something. But when the premier got there, it actually wasn't the mayor. It was just like somebody organized this town hall and the mayor showed up and for 2 hours was asked just like nonsensical questions. And I think like his, I get the whole idea of like you're in front of a crowd and you kind of got to read the room a little bit and try to match their energy and their vibe. But I think when you're the premier of a province and they're asking you about like chemtrails and these like vaccine conspiracy theories and stuff, like even if it's uncomfortable, I think you got to stand your ground and not let on like you're like kind of like supportive of some of these ideas. And because to me, that's what I heard here. He wasn't saying like, yeah, I believe in chemtrails and I'm going to look into it. He was just kind of like playing along a little bit, maybe trying to be nice. But I don't know, if someone's filming it and it ends up online like this did, and you sound like you're going to be researching chemtrails, then you as the premier of the province in the year 2024 screwed up.
Well, I think what's happening here is that 20 or 30 years ago, if somebody asked a question like that at a press conference or a town hall, whatever the venue is, then they would be laughed at and shooed away. But today, with social media, with the access to misinformation and the wildfire online out there of just crazy people talking to crazy people and clickbaits and all this
God
stuff.
love them.
Yes, God love everyone. But 20, 30 years ago, someone asked a question like that, they would be laughed out of the building and would not be taken seriously. But what this particular premier / politician understands and realizes now is that in today's climate, probably 30% of the voters probably all believe in these wacky conspiracy theories now. And so if he were to, so he's not going to flat out say that he believes them, but he's also not going to dismiss them either, because then he's alienating a good chunk of his voting public who believe in chemtrails and believe in vaccine conspiracies and believe in all of the other flat earth, nonsense that is rolling around out there online.
Yeah, it freaks me out, man. The world's gone nuts. And Premier Mo, I think if you're going to answer questions that kind of neutrally, I'd say you got to better vet where you're going and who's going to be asking you questions publicly. Because another thing, like you take 30 years ago, as you did with your thoughts on this, 30 years ago, you do a town hall meeting in some small little town. No one's ever going to know about it. No one's going to care about the premier in Spears, Saskatchewan, talking to these 30 people or whatever it was that showed up. But in this day and age, if you say something stupid and it's videoed, it's going to be amplified by your competitors, which is what happened here. This has become an issue because the opposition, like the people on the other side of the political spectrum in Saskatchewan, are using this to be like, this guy is an idiot. This is not leadership. And yeah, he gets what he gets.
Well, 30 years ago, the person who would be asking about chemtrails would be standing on the street corner down the road from the town hall, yelling at traffic about chemtrails.
Yeah,
But now
exactly.
in today's day and age, the person who asks about chemtrails is an
Yeah.
average professional with a job and family and pays taxes and believes in chemtrails.
I think all of our chemtrail believing listeners are. I wonder if we're going to get some chemtrail voicemails next week.
Well,
We'll see.
yeah.
Let's. If we do, it's going to be listeners who do not enjoy our show. So let's preempt that with a listener who does. Carla wanted to share why she listens to Keep Canada Weird from abroad, and I think you'll like this one.
Greetings. This is your Atlanta, Georgia correspondent, Carla, who also represents the more senior community of your listeners. And I am calling to give you a rationale for why I listen to your show from the United States. First of all, I love all things Canadian. Second of all, you guys remind me of one of my favorite Saturday Night Live shows, which was Wayne's World. And if you'll go back and look at a few episodes, you may notice that there's a little bit of chemistry, little Wayne and Garth chemistry going on. So party on. Thanks a lot. Love your show.
I love it. Yeah, she's the correspondent who handles listeners from Georgia or any listener from the United States who's over the age of 65. Go through Carla.
Or anybody who has questions about Wayne's World or Mike Myers or whoever.
Or Dana Carvey.
Dana Carvey.
I don't know if I get it, but like get the connection between or the similarities between us and Wayne's World. But there are a little bit because Wayne's World were like we both know them well, but for people who don't, it was a Saturday Night Live sketch about these two guys who had like a cable TV show in Canada, and they would just kind of talk about what was on their mind and have guests come in, and they were a lot of fun. I loved Wayne's World, especially as a teenager. I had the hat, like a black hat that said Wayne's World on it. I wore that probably grade 10. I would have worn it all year.
Yeah, I never had a hat, but I watched them on Saturday Night Live. I watched the movies when they came out.
Movies,
They
both were awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, they were great. Yeah, both of them were actually. It was a pretty solid sequel to You Don't.
Did you fall as a kid? Did you fall in love with Cassandra?
I was attracted to her, but I wouldn't say I fell in love with her. To be honest, I never met her in person. So how can you love someone you've never met?
Just on screen, man, in a very like kind of formative time in my life. Cassandra.
Yeah, she wasn't my.
She did it for me.
Yeah, she wasn't my type. I could recognize that she was beautiful and interesting to a teenage Aaron Airport, but yeah, not the typical celebrity crush that I would have in the 90s.
I'm gonna have to catch up on Wayne's World. It's been a long time since I've seen it. I'm going to maybe I'll watch those movies again. They're great movies. I think maybe it was you. You pitched the idea of a Keep Canada Weird kind of like not book club but movie club. That could be something fun. If listeners want to do a watch along with movies, Aaron and I'd be up for it. We could maybe either like watch the movie and talk about it, or watch the movie and do commentary over it or something. If people are interested in a Keep Canada Weird movie club done in the style of a book club, I think you and I are up for it.
I'm up for that. Yeah. Well, I mean, I watch movies anyway, so.
Yeah, me too. It's just the movie would have to have a Canadian
It has to be
connection.
deeply Canadian.
Yeah. Something to think about. Let us know if you'd like that. But let's move on to something altogether different. Something we cover a lot on the show. Of course, we get into animals. Of course, we get into bylaws. Something else we get into is scams. And this one is quite interesting. So a group of homeowners in Mississauga hired what they thought was a well-known and respected construction company to do some asphalt work, only to find out that the company they hired wasn't who they thought they were. The fallout that comes from a subtle misrepresentation, tweak in a name, has led to an absolute mess, one that includes the recent arrest of one of the victims to this scam. Listen to this nonsense.
To a CTV News investigation now into a paving company making a name for itself by pretending to be someone else so that the trail angry customers follow lead back to another company that has no idea what is going on.
Now, CTV John Woodward reports their impersonation was so effective and may have even tricked police.
They just destroy your driveway.
Jun Shu might have said yes to a new driveway, but he says a paving company never gave him the chance. And on May 14th, workers ripped his driveway up without his permission.
No document, no any signatures, and nothing.
The business card said Royal Town Construction, and Shu, a 62-year-old engineer, called them to complain. He wasn't the only one, except Royal Town Construction supervisor Costa Alexopoulos had no idea what they were talking about.
We're not there. We were in Brampton doing a parking lot. We're not even anywhere near where you guys are. And then it clicked in.
His business card, similar but not identical to the ones the other company had left behind. Alexopoulos rushed down.
Let me see the asphalt tickets.
He took this video. It shows the workers silently scattering.
They left machines, equipment behind and just took off.
One of those machines left behind this roller. Shu called Peel Regional Police and says officers told him they started a fraud investigation because other neighbors had been hit too.
More than 10 victims from this case.
But a few days later, different officers returned, Shu said, asking about that roller. They can be seen on a neighbor's surveillance camera. Shu said he wanted to hold on to it as collateral for his driveway.
Those two police didn't know anything about this fraud case.
The next time the officers returned, they weren't asking. Shu was arrested. The video shows him being put into a police car as his wife tries to figure out what is happening. And while Shu is spending 6 hours in jail, the video shows the police standing by as the owner of that roller loads it up on a flatbed truck.
In my 62 years history, I didn't have anything like this. I feel that I was badly treated by police.
Peel police say they're looking into what happened and don't have all the answers yet. But they did confirm that the complainant in the case that resulted in the arrest of Jun Shu was a paving company. Alexopoulos said he never called police about that roller. He says his company uses much larger machines. He says he still gets multiple calls from customers complaining about another company using his name.
They're smart. They're going to use one of the best names to get the work because they know it's going to be easy to get it.
Are these guys so good that somehow they've even scammed the police?
Well, when the police was there and the one pickup and trailer they left on site, the police ran the plate and told us it's coming back as unknown.
Alexopoulos wants customers to be wary, and if anyone shows up claiming to be Royal Town Construction, to call their office before agreeing to anything. As for Shu, he's planning to get his driveway fixed, this time by the real Royal Town Construction.
And that one is a roller coaster as well. I think if you're just listening to the news clip, you don't entirely get what happens because a lot of it happens on screen, but ultimately the main victim we're hearing from in that story has these scammers come tear apart his driveway. He then calls the actual company that uses the name like Royal Town or whatever it was. And the owner of that business shows up on the scene and chases the workers away. They all just kind of leave with their heads down, leaving equipment behind, which he doesn't want to give back, ultimately leading to his arrest, while a separate group of the police are doing the fraud investigation. Like there's so many moving parts to this.
It's hard to follow. It's such a weird scam in the sense that it takes so much effort to pull off. Like you actually have to show up and do the work.
Well, I think the scam is simply that it's not so much a scam as it is just like gross misrepresentation bordering on fraud, which is acting as a reputable business and probably charging rates not as high as the reputable business, but more than you would as just Joe Blow who knows a little bit about it. Because these, like what I think is happening here is unskilled workers are trying to pretty themselves up to be a reputable company to get you to agree to do their business and pay them, and they will far under deliver on the work. But when someone, like if someone knocks on your door, and puts together the appearance that they're a reputable company willing to do the work, I could see how that could happen. But I think in this guy's case, this victim, he stands his ground by being like, well, you're not getting the equipment you left when you took off running, basically, when the real owner showed up. You're not getting that back until you fix the damage or pay me or whatever. But you can't really do that. The police will get you if you kind of have to let the cops do their job with the fraud investigation. And I don't think you can just hold their equipment as collateral.
But it's still one of those, I guess you call it a crime, but it's one of these scams crimes where you're going to get caught. Like you're going to get caught. It's only a matter of time. You're
You
pretending
would
to be
think.
another company. So when you're
Hmm.
coming up with this plan, aren't you also thinking about how you're going to be able to continue the scam or the crime for as long as possible without getting caught? Like, isn't that part of the planning?
Well, the crime really with the name would be like kind of like trademark infringement or whatever. And they would have a case because the original company was called like Royal Town Construction. They were presenting themselves as Royal Town Paving, which is a slightly different name. I'm sure if you brought that to court, the original trademark holder would win. But yeah, I think in this story, it's a great ad for the real Royal Town
Yeah,
Construction.
we're so good that people pretend to be us.
We're going to end the show with a duo of voicemails related to nudist beaches and experiences that listeners had at them. You'll recall last week we talked about the nudist beach that came along with a property purchase. We called out to any listeners who had any experiences or thoughts on nudist beaches or nudist colonies. And yeah, they delivered. Let's just go through them one by one and talk these out. First, we're going to hear from Andy on nudists. No laughing or smiling. Here it comes.
I won't enjoy myself then.
Hi, Jordan and Aaron. It's Andy calling from Victoria, BC. I've never felt inclined to call in before, but I was listening to your segment on the nudist beach, and you were debating about whether it's an inherently sexual thing or not. I just want to say that I used to live very close to a nudist beach. I used to go a lot. Never took my underwear off because, as you mentioned, there's a risk for sunburns, and I was way too scared for that. But I do want to say that at least at the beach that I used to frequent, there was there were some people that were extremely creepy. And it was like understood that those people were not welcome, and that like creepy in a sexual way. It was meant to be a celebration of people's bodies, and in a way that's like non-sexual, like just like a freedom thing. And anybody that came on to you that acted in any way sexual was not welcome, and we all knew who those people were. So yeah, definitely not sexual, definitely just an ability for people to be who they are and hang out and just be. Thank you. I love the show.
Uh, so if
You should
you,
cut that end out and like add it, be it as the tagline at the end of every episode.
yeah, I like that. That's a good idea.
Mhm.
The way Andy describes it is it was not sexual at the nudist beaches, and if you were there to pick up, you were the outcast. And I think the last thing you want to be is like the outcast at the nudist beach.
Yeah, you don't put that on your job resume.
You definitely want to feel accepted.
What happens though if you go to a nudist beach with the intentions of celebrating your own body and whoever else's body, but you actually meet somebody there and a spark occurs? And are you able to pursue it, or do you have to wait until you get off the beach?
When you walk up the path, when you put your clothes on, you'd be like, I didn't want to say this when we were both
When we
naked.
were naked together, but I want to be naked with you.
Yeah, not at the beach.
Not at the beach. Maybe at a public park, but not at the beach.
We also have a listener named Frenny, and Frenny's story is similar. She kind of tackles the whole idea that it can be about freedom, and it can be an non-sexual thing, but Franny kind of ruins their own argument when they start listing the awful, creepy experiences they had at said nudist beach when they were a teenager. This is a weird one. This show is Keep Canada Weird. It seems like the work is already done in Australia. Frenny, I believe, was originally from Australia. Based solely on this voicemail, Australia sounds like a crazy place. Listen to this.
Hello, Jordan, Bonaparte, and handsome Aaron Airport. This is Franny, your correspondent from Vancouver Island, BC. Well, I'm calling to follow up on a story you had last week about nudists. I wanted to say that I grew up in Australia and we used to frequent a nude beach with my family, believe it or not. And so, yes, it was quite a free and quite a family event where people would go for the weekends. They would go to the nudist beach in my area where I grew up in Queensland and play. People would play cricket in the nude. People would swim in the ocean and frolic on the beach. And there would be children and elderly and all kinds of people commingling in very harmonious fashion. And there was nothing weird that I could see. I tried not to stare at people's lower nether regions when they were speaking to me, but I do think that generally I was uncomfortable as a teenager, early teens. Fast forward to another time with my friends, we left school for the afternoon and went camping for the weekend at said nudist beach, and we were not supposed to camp there, but we did. We were 13 or 14 at the time, and there was a super creepy guy one day that was just we were like laying in our camp area behind the sand dunes, and we looked around and we had a group of girls and boys at different ages of teenage years, and we were kind of topless or half in our swimsuits laying around suntanning, and then this creepy guy came out from behind some trees, and he was touching himself and he was naked. The boys got up and chased him away. And then another incident where we were on the beach and my friends and girls were naked, and there was no one else on the beach except some really pervy dudes further down who had binoculars. So yeah, that's the same beach, two totally different incidences. But I would say back then it was totally normal to go to the beach and be nude. And then fast forward to here on Vancouver Island, where there's actually a small lake here, which has a nudist colony. And I went there twice, I think. And I was actually very pretty comfortable. And people were really nice, including parents with kids. So there are some really good experiences. However, I do not frequent any nudist beaches in the last 10 years because I'm just not into it. And there you have it. That's the update and report from Vancouver Island and the Sunshine Coast in Australia.
I'm speechless. Do you want to take that?
I think Franny should write a book on nude beaches. Because I've never met anybody in my life that has so much experience with nude beaches and then declares, after having talked for 15 minutes about nude beaches, that she doesn't like nude beaches.
She was like raised into it. Like she was born in a spot. I didn't know this about Australia, but apparently near Queensland, like nude beaches are, I guess, like an acceptable thing to like take the whole family to and play cricket and volleyball and go for a swim naked with the kids and stuff.
And as Franny puts it, frolic. There was some frolicking about.
That's what you would have to do. But
well, if you're naked, you have to frolic. I think it's a rule written on a sign at nude beaches.
But yeah, so she grows up amongst that. She gets out of it, it seems like after her teenage years when pedophiles are giving her and her young teenage friends a hard time. She then ends up in Vancouver Island, tries the nude beach experience there, and has an all right time. But yeah, she has some experience there.
Yeah, she has a wealth of experience with nude beaches, but I think they gave the kind of creepy pervert who came out of the woods and was kind of leering towards her and her friends on the nude beach, and then the guys chased the pervert off. I
That
think
must
that's
have,
what the pervert wanted. I
yeah.
think he wanted to be chased, and then they just were feeding him everything that he came here to eat, you know?
Oh God, that's like I'm just imagining this in my head. They're all naked and like it's just a
And he's like, "Don't chase me. Don't chase me. Oh, you're not going to get me." Yeah.
and the binoculars one may have been a misunderstanding, but the fellow who came out of the woods masturbating or whatever she said, he was a freak.
Well, I can play devil's advocate on both of those circumstances. So I think the guys with the binoculars could have been there looking for blackbirds swooping, because it might have been June, early June. And the blackbirds could have been in an aggressive state at that point in time. And then,
Oh, imagine a blackbird swooping down at you, pecking at you, and you're butt naked, like defenseless. That's hell on earth. But yeah.
Yeah. But if you want to look at blackbirds at a nude beach, then you have to take that risk if you're a hobbyist of bird watching.
So you're the devil's advocate for those people. They're bird watchers, not leerers looking at the naked teenagers.
And the masturbator, it's not his fault if that's where he masturbates and you happen to be there naked.
I'm just imagining the critical email I get about that.
No one has a problem with that. That's just common sense and logic.
Australia
Yeah.
sounds very strange.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to visit there, but I probably wouldn't go to a nude beach with my family if I did.
Fereni should write a book. I agree with that. I have a feeling those aren't the only interesting experiences that Fereni had in Australia and beyond. If you have any more stories, Fereni, send them in. I'd like to hear more about your exploits, preferably while fully clothed.
Sure.
Well, I think we've done our work here, Aaron. We've been all across the country, stops in England, stops in Australia, stops in Saskatchewan, Sudbury, Mississauga. I don't think there's any weird thing we didn't cover tonight.
No. And yeah, no, we checked all the boxes. Let's take her home.
Yeah, let's take her home and put a bow on this. Handsome Aaron Airport. Until next time.
Jordan, until next time.
If you're going to sound doubtful of a listener's story when they send it in, prepare to receive a map that shows that you were out of line. You owe Ruth an apology. You owe Silas an apology.
Yeah, well, I'm speaking of maps. Until next time, Jordan, I'm going to send a map to the airline companies so they can dump chemtrails all over your house in Halifax.
Oh, damn it.
So that way I can control your mind.
I want to thank you for helping Aaron and I fulfill our mission to keep Canada weird, but let us also call out to you for even greater support in this. If something weird happens in your neck of the woods, or if you have any thoughts, opinions, feedback, or theories on anything we discussed tonight, we want to hear about it. The best way to reach us is by sending a voice message using the voice recorder found at nighttimepodcast.com/contact. And to sweeten the deal a little bit, if your voice is aired on the show, you qualify for a Keep Canada Weird swag pack. So once you hear your voice message played, all you got to do is email me at nighttimepodcast@gmail.com, give me your mailing address, and I'll have a pack out to you right away. Now before we part, let me end with some thanks. First, a big thanks to Aaron for sharing an evening with me and with you, the listeners of Nighttime. A shout out to the internet's favorite cult leader Unicole, who provides the intro and outro voiceovers, and Monty Data, who provides the outro version of O Canada. And then lastly, but most importantly, a massive thank you goes out to each and every one of you listening to the show, as without your interest and your support, Nighttime would be as pointless as it would be impossible. Now on the topic of support, let me thank the newest subscribers to the premium feed. Carly, Emma, and Amy, thank you for going premium. If anyone else would like to support the show, you can do it in a variety of ways. First of all, a premium feed subscription costs just a couple dollars a month, and that money funds the creation of new episodes. But the premium feed will also give you those new episodes 2 days early, give them to you ad-free, and give you access to a full back catalog of episodes. If that sounds like something you're interested in, you can go premium at patreon.com/nighttimepodcast. And even if you don't want to go premium, you can still support the show by sharing this episode on social media and letting all your like-minded friends know what we're doing here. Your support is very much appreciated. So until next time, take care of each other, hug your loved ones tight, and let us know if you see anything weird.
Keep Canada Weird is written, hosted, and produced by the Nighttime Podcast.
And now to our viewers and listeners everywhere. Good night.
What's the story of the night? Some options that we have. We had the nasty birds in Toronto. We had the serial attacking dog in Sudbury. The Premier tackling the chemtrails. And of course we had the paving scam. In addition to all the voicemails.
But I'm going to go with the blackbirds swooping.
Okay,
yeah.
I think I like it. I'm tempted to go with the chemtrails because I am a fan of the supernatural, paranormal, and the chemtrail story kind of ties into that a little bit. I like that it's a premiere, kind of in a compromising position. That position being, filmed at an event that he probably didn't expect to be that important. I'm going to go with the chemtrails being my story of the week.
Mm-hmm.
Do you need to plead any case, or what? Like, what about the bird story? Do you like?
What I like about it is in the news footage, I like watching the people running away, covering their heads, screaming in pure terror with the tiny little birds chasing them.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love the show.